I think inclusive and exclusive language is something I didn't really think about a lot until coming to Macalester. The place where I grew up, so in San Jose, a lot of my friends kind of like were like me, or like, you know, we were able to talk to each other in a way that we didn't really understand how important it was to be inclusive with our language, to make sure that like people felt included. And I didn't realize how important that was until I came to Macalester, where I felt very different. I felt very alone. So at Macalester, you know, being a person of color has been like a very like definitive part of it, because it's something that makes me sometimes feel alone at Macalester. And I feel like when people think of Macalester and the Macalester student, I'm not always included in that.
I remember this one student who was a year older than me. He was on student government at the time, and he said he didn't really understand what the big issue was about not using the term alien, because it's a technical term, it's a government term. He said this in class, and he said, you know, this is how it's nothing about the person as a person so much as it is a, you know, a technical term that was written in government documents a long time ago, and it's just you know, the same as saying citizen or not citizen, or, you know, and it absolutely made no sense to me. And I and several other students reacted and said, you know, just because it's written that way and because it's become the practice and because it's the law and the tradition of the country, it does not mean that it's not violent. It's not mean that it should continue to be that way, because if you remember other languages that have been written into history, we have to put ourselves as a country in check.
One time I was eating in Cafe Mac with a white friend my first year here, and I was eating with a tortilla, and I was eating tortillas and food with my hands. It's really an interactive experience for me with all of my food. The person in front of me, this white man, looked at me and like looked at my plate and asked if all ethnic people ate with their hands. And I didn't know what to do at the time.
I remember quite vividly the first time I used the phrase heebie-jeebies in front of my partner, who turned to me and gave me this look and was like, do you know the origins of that word? And I had no idea. I had no idea that it had an anti-Semitic implication or background. I was totally floored. I probably turned bright red. I was super embarrassed. I just felt really horrible, and I felt this impulse to be like, no, that's not what I meant, you know, just because I felt so bad about using the word. But that was kind of a knee-jerk response, I think, just feeling defensive. And at the time, my partner kind of talked me down and was like, I know you didn't understand and you haven't heard that before, but it's good that you know this. It definitely made me feel really embarrassed and really bad about using that word.
It was something that was a joke, and it was an environment where it was like a fun environment. It wasn't very serious. It's kind of hard to take a step back and make it something serious instead of just laughing along. So it's hard to be like, even though it's funny, it doesn't mean anything. Like, do you really have to do that?
It's the context that matters for the word that you're using. But I know also that like, whose context is a good question to ask when that comes up. Because a lot of people have framed themselves within that context as opposed to someone else's life. So if you like use the term like illegal immigrant, and that's something that's really triggering for me, and you say that the context is like wouldn't have made it harmful, but it's like the context within your own life that wouldn't have made it harmful. But you have to understand that context is also something that is based on everyone else's identity. So your context is way different than someone else's context. And you can't justify your words based on your own personal context.
I don't think that my feelings are more important than anyone else's feelings. And when it comes to exclusive or inclusive language, I think people are, if someone says the words that you're using are hurting me, they're asking for you to validate their feelings, and that all of us are human beings, all of us have these important feelings, and mine are not more important than another person's just because I'm more comfortable with my vocabulary and they're telling me that there's something I'm saying that's uncomfortable.
Whether or not we understand the power of our words, we still use them.
So what kind of impact do you want to make?
More than words. Your voice, your choice. Whether or not we understand the power of our words, we still use them. So what kind of impact do you want to make?